Good evening and welcome to Words of Art. In tonight's edition, we're going to be looking at Cityscapes by Bacarisas, Azagury and Mifsud. Good evening, Dennis. Good evening, Gino.
Hi.
Gino, Cityscapes, what does it bring to mind?
Well, it brings to mind sometimes the ambiguities that are done in painting or through painting in relation to cityscapes or urban landscapes, going back to the Middle Ages. For example, some of the views that were painted of Jerusalem are completely fictitious. They're made up, and they're made up to look more like a European medieval capital than what was actually probably the case.
Let me interrupt you there. Painted by whom?
Well, most of it is anonymous. These are in codexes and all that, but the first attempts are, strangely enough, they don't look Islamic or anything or Middle Eastern like that. It's a kind of cornucopia or mixture of styles. So Jerusalem, probably people didn't fly, they had no TV, so well, that's Jerusalem.
So
that's
well, in one sense, romanticizing Jerusalem as the ideal city.
Exactly, and that happens all throughout the history of painting. There is a search for actuality, but it comes in quite late. I mean, even for example, if you look at the early prints of Gibraltar, I mean, they've got all these humps that look nothing at all like what Gibraltar is. You know, as we're getting closer to the 18th century, more or less, they get into a recognizable form. And for example, even in the 18th century as well, Canaletto, who's the great Venetian painter of Venice precisely, he would change buildings around to suit his own artistic intentions and what he wanted to do. So there, even in something as fixed, let's put it that way, as an urban landscape, there is a certain license and artistic license, and we will see it in relation to the three, Bacarisas, Azagury and Lenny.
Dennis, cityscapes, what do they mean to you?
Cityscapes to me, bearing in mind that I personally specialise in portraits and figures, means that I can get more from a cityscape about the artist himself than I can from a portrait. So the interest of in cityscapes for me is I can deduce more about the artist and what his intentions were than I can from a portrait, because in painting a portrait, much of what the artist himself is all about gets lost. It becomes,
because they have to stick to the motif
he has
of the likeness of the sitter.
That's right. He's bringing out the character and the personality and the life experiences of his subject, his sitter. That's his priority. But when it comes to a cityscape, what comes out there, I can deduce more about the artist's own character and personality.
So in other words, the artist can put more of himself or herself into a cityscape than he would do on a portrait.
That's right.
Revealing much more of the artist's personality.
Yes. So that's the attraction for a cityscape for me, as opposed to, say, for a portrait.
A portrait, yes.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, maybe developing from your point, is that, for example, we know Gibraltar, and we look at this Bacarisa and we say, oh, upper town. But for somebody who doesn't know what the upper town looks like, it's completely different. You know, this may be Naples, but no, it's the upper town of Gibraltar. There's that factor, as you were saying, of portrait, of recognition. You know, like, I don't know, you may have it even on the religious side, the face of Christ.
Yes.
What was the face of Christ? You know, it's also information, but what was the real face? Here we have a definite location. and the three of them are Gibraltar, but our perception will be different from somebody who's never, if this was seen in New York, it's well, yeah, I suppose, well, it is, but maybe it's not. So there's that, yeah, how can I explain, urge to get down to the truth of the matter. Is that really the Upper Town and Catalan Bay and the Cathedral of St. Mary the Crowned, and how is this truth portrayed? Yeah. Yeah. And it'll be interesting when we get to Lenny.
I'd like to throw in an idea of the beginning of cityscapes being the portrayal of the refuge. Because going back into history, cityscapes always belonged to the walled city, where life would take place in seclusion and in protection of the enemies. And it became a precious commodity. This is my town, this is my fortress, this is safety for me. Is there something in that idea that cityscapes became approved for art?
Yeah, especially you were saying about the Dutch, for example, and its power. You know, for example, you would get not only the town or the urban landscape, but also the walls that we have here. Well, we are in the walls, and that is also part of the personality of the urban landscape. You may choose to put them in, or you may choose to leave them out and focus on something else. It depends on the intention and of the artist and who it is for, maybe as well. Yeah.
Yes, I'll go less deep than that. I mean, the thing I like about the Bacarisas picture is that where he painted it. I mean, he painted it from the hotel, and he painted it in 1946. He'd been incarcerated in Gibraltar. I mean, this man who had lived in, 5 or 6 different countries all his life, at the age of 60 odd, finds himself incarcerated in Gibraltar at the time when it was nothing more or less than a fortification. I mean, there's no town or community. I mean, it's a fortified war zone, in effect. No opportunity for artists to commune with other artists or sell his work or exhibit his work. There he is in this hotel with a war going on, with imminent invasion, and suddenly the war is over. He's there sitting in his hotel, and he paints this picture.
Yes.
And you say, well, you know, it caught his eye because of the light on the
I was going to
cityscape.
say, it's very much about the light hitting the surface of the walls and of the town.
Brilliant.
And he is over. Usually when he paints Gibraltar, it's views from up, down. Be it the Cecil, be up on the rock. He's never, well, I haven't seen anything, in the street. And we very rarely see the people, or at least in the ones that we have here of the Corpus Christi and all that, the people are, you see the mass, but it's all like ants around. No, he's more concerned with, I think, the geometry of the town, the physiognomy, if we take it as a portrait, the features of the town, not so much the people who are living there. You can kind of gauge, you know,
so it's about geometry.
Which is something that then Mario Finlayson developed.
Yes, Mario Finlayson developed geometry.
The geometry.
That's right.
Yeah. I wondered whether, in fact, it was important to him, the town itself, as a subject.
Interesting.
I mean, looking at this, I mean, it could be anywhere.
It could be any town in any Mediterranean city, couldn't it?
It gave him an opportunity to do what he likes doing best.
Exactly.
And that is getting the colours in there.
Yes, and getting the light and the shade.
I mean, typical Gustavo Bacarisas, isn't it? I mean, he's got every colour of the spectrum in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every colour of the spectrum.
Yes.
And you say, well, it's a cityscape, but to him, it's an exercise in doing what he liked best, which is colour.
Colour and light, yes.
And light and shade.
Yes.
And that, to him, I think, when he was sitting there on the terrace, was what was it all about for him.
Yeah.
But maybe as he was born in the upper town, in Castle Road, for him it's like looking at himself. It's almost a mirror. the upper town for him becomes like a mirror after those years.
A nostalgic, moment, yeah.
A bit like Van Gogh maybe with the sunflowers. He goes back again and he goes back again, and Gustavo, every time he comes back through all those years, and we've spoken about this in other programs, Gibraltar as a safe haven, as a fortress, as that double aspect, and looking at, these are my roots, you know, so he's painting his roots, that's where he came from, and that's very, very touching,
very moving,
and very moving.
That
there's always this, and the fact that the visual material is interesting enough to make him go back again. No? It's like Van Gogh, again the sunflowers of Cézanne, the apples of Cézanne, and which is good, the search.
Yeah,
the
get
search
obsessed
for
with
truth,
the subject matter.
for truth. And ultimately find your truth there, whatever that is.
But the fact that it's a cityscape is again interesting, because the other thing about Bacarisas is he can vary his style, and he seems to vary his style according to his subject and his intention. And here, if you compare the style he's used here, it is totally different from the portrait we discussed of his in the last
the Guy
session.
Stagnetto portrait, yes.
Take his portrait of Guy Stagnetto and compare it with this. I mean, Guy Stagnetto is a totally different style. Again, with that portrait, again, he got all the colours with spectrum in it, but in terms of style, again, totally different. And it's that ability of his.
I wonder if style changes with intimacy. If when one is nearer emotionally to a subject matter, it makes you work in a different way. Would you say there's something there?
Definitely.
Because this is a very intimate portrait, the Guy Stagnetto portrait, as you have pointed out. And with this one, we have more of a looser, a more detached mark than we have with the Guy Stagnetto one.
Well, Guy Stagnetto was alive in front of him. Here we have, okay, people live there, but it's facades. It's a much more open, put it that way, attitude.
I'm sorry to say, but time's up on us, so we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Where's the Art? Dennis, before the break we mentioned the fact that Bacarisas changed his technique according to his subject matter, and we compared it with the Guy Stagnetto painting. We're going to leave that now, and we're going to be looking at Lenny Mifsud's attempt at a cityscape. Any comments on this type of work?
Yes, first of all, I mean, it's a charming work, isn't it? There's no question about that. Absolutely charming. But the thing that struck me about is the power of this painting. I mean, the way it's painted, the colours, the selection of colours, and the vigorous way in which it's been painted.
The bravura way,
I mean, but the thing is, it comes across with a feeling of joy and happiness, which to me is the whole thing about this painting. It really is. The subject matter, I think, to me is secondary, and I suspect that as far as the artist is concerned, it was secondary also. I think that the artist chose this particular subject simply to enable her to use this style of painting. It's a simple, straightforward, and yet it is still something recognisable to Gibraltarians. But it's equally powerful as a painting to non-Gibraltarians who wouldn't know what this painting was about at all. And the great thing is that it's got its feel-good factor. And it's that feel-good factor which I think is the most important thing about this painting in terms of its meaning as far as art is concerned, actually, because it really does achieve what art is all about, and that is to make people who look at a picture feel good when they look at it. And it's very interesting also to consider how this style compares with the Fauves and the Expressionists.
We're going to mention the Fauves, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me is the other fascinating thing too. And for those who are familiar with the work of the Fauves and the Expressionists, to see the style and the use of colours and the style, but the difference of the intention. Because I think the intention here is significantly different from what some of the Fauves were at, and again what some of the Expressionists were about. And I think it compares very well with Van Gogh's work.
Van Gogh.
And as we know, both the Expressionists and the Fauves were inspired by Van Gogh as a painter.
And I see some of the Germans as well, Grosz and Beckmann, the German Expressionists, especially in the facades. But I was going to mention some. We were talking about portraits before, but the first thing I don't think I've seen this work before, but what struck me was the time of the clock. It could be 12:15 or 3 o'clock. So there's a time, and then this figure alone in the street. And I don't know, I find it a very touching depiction of time and the passage of time, and maybe herself. Let's not forget this. It's a woman.
She's in the picture.
It's a woman. We don't know if it's her, but at least there's that relationship between somebody going through Main Street, an empty Main Street, and this clock that says either ambiguously either 3:15 or 12:15, and I find that very, very touching, that detail of that relationship with time and time in Gibraltar as well, no? And kept by the cathedral bell tower. And then there's, as we were saying before, the German Expressionists. There's a hardness and there's a softness at the same time. It's a very, again, I go back to that word again, ambiguous attitude.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised.
To the subject.
I'm quite surprised and pleased that you both have brought the word expressionist to Leni. It's an eye opener to me, because I never considered that. I never considered her in the vein of expressionism. But having mentioned Beckmann and the other expressionists, I can see the use of very raw colour coming through.
And especially the texture. I don't know. There's texture near the figure to the right.
Yes.
There's some sort of gesso markings or whatever. I think there's something underneath here.
So
yes, I picked that up actually. I think that the impasto has been put on as a ground. Rather than just.
It seems that she's showing signs of being quite advanced in what was happening around her at the time.
And temperament, because the way that is laid.
And she's letting her temperament show through. Yes.
It's a kind of emotional cardiogram of herself. I mean, I knew her, and you knew her as well. She was very impulsive.
She was very impulsive,
and impatient, and you can sense some of that.
Very surprising for a female artist to produce something with this power and boldness. Really surprising.
And it started to go not against the grain of her education, artistic education, because she was learned to hide the art. She would have taught. She would have been taught to hide the mark, not to let the mark show through in a proper academic work. And she's obviously rebelling, and also the courage of her convictions to paint what she feels and not what she thinks only. And it's quite revealing in this work to think of in terms of expressionism.
So really, and even with the Bacarisa, what we're talking about now is emotional cityscapes or emotional landscapes.
Absolutely.
A response to your environment. Yes.
This is why I think that this compares very favourably with Van Gogh. I know he was a genius, and maybe Leni wasn't such as a genius, but it compares very favourably in my mind anyway. And it actually, I would go so far as to say, it shows up the failure of the success of Van Gogh. I would go that far, because to me Van Gogh has one drawback, and that is whatever he paints, and I'm obviously speaking personally, there's an air of melancholy about it. And I have to ask myself how a painter can paint such glorious colours with such a vibrant, enthusiastic style, and sunflowers of all the gay flowers you could think of painting, and yet there it is. To me, it's got an air of melancholy about it. How can an artist paint with those colours like that, with beautiful flowers, and yet get an air of melancholy behind it?
But that's
Interesting question. Yes,
the artist reveals himself in the work becomes a portrait.
And I think to me
I'm afraid,
this is where his painting fails.
We cannot pursue that line of thought, Dennis, because that will take the whole programme, 3 more, and we will not be able to attend to Azagury. So that I think we shall leave for another time. But it's a fascinating subject, absolutely. Let's have a look at the Azagury, because this one fascinates me, and hopefully the director will zoom in on the small details of this work, which are the ones that are really for me are fascinating. Gino, your thoughts on the Azagury as a cityscape?
I like a lot I'm a great admirer of architecture, and and this is a feast of lines and volumes.
Yes,
and
indeed. Yeah.
So I love, especially in the foreground, all that business of steps going up and down, which we know. I mean, the upper town is,
about it, doesn't it?
In this case, it's La Caleta. It's full of that, and it's so visually stimulating, and that's what the mind and the brain, or at least my brain, likes to be stimulated. So I'm all, agog in all this visual information,
movement.
Well, static. It's our brain that moves, but this is the fixed. The buildings are fixed. The people are kind of. And finally, we see people moving around in Gibraltar, even if it's in La Caleta. That there are people living in this place. It's not just facades and empty streets. No, there is an activity.
These are homes and not buildings.
There is a human activity, and we see where the activity comes from, the sea, and we see the boat. So there's that correlation of
the fishing village,
of the fishing village and where the action is, and that to a certain extent, I know, and this is going back, that people lived in La Caleta off the sea.
Yes,
that is their livelihood. So it's very interesting, all those different layers of meaning that a cityscape can have.
What's fascinating for me is the interlocking of this composition. It's perfectly achieved. The sense of compactness of the village as opposed to the open landscape behind. It's a wonderful crisscross of lines and compactness. And inside there, he's managed to put in little figures going about their everyday lives. We are running out of time, so Dennis, I'll give you the last word on the Azagury.
For me, it's obviously a charming picture. It's scenic. But my first reaction to this was that it's historical. It's a piece of history, and I think that as such, this picture will live much longer than many others. Many other pictures have been binned and burnt. This one will always have a home in Gibraltar because it is literally an historic scene, and I think that possibly.
Historic in the sense that it's describing how it used to be.
How it was, as opposed to how it is today. I mean, we know now that all these buildings, except the church and the steps, have gone. I mean, all this has been rebuilt. But
the way we were.
I have to stop you, Dennis.
The way we were.
Good evening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.